All right, here we go. We are back with interview number 2 live here from FETC. We just had Amy Bloom stop by. We have Alicia is back signing some books for us. We're very excited to be here. We have so many people stop by. How are you today? All right. You want to say hi to people? Oh, no, stop on. This is what we do live. Oh, we got a signed book. This is exciting stuff. You love it. This is what happens here when we podcast live. And we got gifts. And the fun continues. Stevie's just sitting here like, what's happening here? But although she is a veteran guest, I had a chance to meet her at ISTE, which was amazing. And we are thrilled to be back here. I am Matthew Joseph, host of Stronger Together podcast. And I am not just the host, I'm the co-host, because this year at FETC, I'm thrilled to partner with Identity Automation booth 1736. Make sure to stop by tomorrow when the vendor hall opens up, and also definitely stop by Thursday at 3:30 when we'll be giving away books from 2 amazing authors, Amy Bloom, who was just here, and Lori Guion, that Identity Automation partnered with us and helped to make that possible. So Jamie, welcome in as the co-host of FETC 2025.
Hey, thank you so much. Excited to represent Identity Automation. Excited to be here and just to connect with educators. It's going to be a great week.
Awesome. And I am thrilled to have back one of my favorite guests of this. It was the first time I got a chance to kind of meet her and hear her work, and was just amazed at the work that she does, especially for the field and for women in the field. It was just incredibly impressive. So, Stevie, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be able to be here. And this is my first FETC. So I am
2 first-timers in a row.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled. So everybody has just been amazing. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share some time with you in your space.
That's so cool. All right, Stevie, we got to hear all about you. So tell me, I know I've seen your name everywhere, so I feel like I know you, but you could share a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
All right. So my name is Stevie Frank. I'm a digital learning specialist in my district located in Zionsville, Indiana. And I also do some consulting on the side. So that's maybe why it's been everywhere. So I have in so many different spaces and places. I have grown an amazing professional learning network that I rely on almost daily to be able to have any questions answered or be able to get some like amazing ideas for lesson planning and what it looks like in my role every day. So I just love these opportunities. And I'm so excited to be in person today just because I'm like, I get to see all my friends that I only see online. So this is super exciting for me.
We're thrilled. I can't believe it's your first time. And this is new. So the Stronger Together podcast has first-time co-host, and the first 2 guests are new to FETC. And for me, it's one of my favorite events through the year because you get to see so many people and someone who's on the district leadership side. Sometimes going to just a tech event doesn't reach the mark, but with all the different tracks of ed tech coaches and principals and district leaders and STEM coaches, and I think there's a new one this year, esports track. It's so amazing, and your work kind of spreads through all of them. So you have 2 days worth of sessions, well, 2 sessions on 2 days through here. So I want to talk about them first on the 15th. So tomorrow at 12 o'clock, talk about alternate forms of assessment. So that'll be in room North 210B. Make sure to stop in. But that's interesting to me because it's something I'm really trying to bring to our district. So talk about that session.
So great question. It was one of those sessions that I started, I would say about 4 years ago. And I really started to present about thinking about assessments as a different way to be able to ask in and recognize different forms of when it comes to technology. So for example, it's not like an app smash because I feel like we've really got to go back to the pedagogy of, as we've learned with, different ed tech tools before in the past, is different ed tech tools sometimes come and go. So a lot of times if you can just make sure that you are invested in the pedagogy of why did you choose that tool. So that's what I really like to talk about. I like to talk about some of my favorite tools that I use now and some of the tools that I had used when I was in the classroom. I'm 2.5 years removed, so I still feel like I'm a part of it. I co-teach every day in my position too. So I like to always think about like that end in mind whenever it comes to lesson planning. So that's really where I'm just passionate about is I'm like, I sit down with the teacher and I'm like, okay, well, what's our learning objective? What's our curriculum talking about? And then how can we assess that in a more creative, using the level 4 depth of knowledge and using that higher level of SAMR model. So really thinking about all those different components, and that's what I'm going to share about tomorrow.
Okay, so I remember I was an instructional technologist at one point, And I remember this aha moment for me where it went from me making the tool fit into my standard. And then somebody that was in leadership over me at the time really kind of changed my perspective and said, hey, you're starting with the technology instead of starting with your standard, what your objective is, what you want the students to learn. And then finding the resources from there, which is like, was a really big change for me. But it also made it how I presented back to educators, right? Like, where are we starting? What do you want and need the students to know at the end of the day? But hearing you talk about pedagogy and that philosophy behind, how you assess the success of something that's going to fit. So do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. So a lot of times, well, let me just think. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting down with a teacher, a third grade teacher, and she was like, I really want to use artificial intelligence in the class, and it's just fun. So let's just do this fun image generator just for funsies. And I was like, you know what? What's your standard say? Like, where are you at right now? We just adopted Wit and Wisdom for our reading curriculum. And I was like, well, where are we at there? And so she was just saying that they were reading a book by Jacques Cousteau, and they were talking about different, this amazing, just visually representative book. And it was just beautiful. And so I was like, well, why not have the kids like generate their AI image and put that into one of the pages of their books and saying, okay, if I was going to add a page, here's what it would be. And then it has to be adding details from another book that they read. So like that hits that standard of also making sure that you're including facts and detailed descriptions and quoting your sources. And so I was like, well, let's make it more meaningful. And that's that kind of deep work that I do, and that I think we should be doing as instructional coaches instead of just being this flashy, oh, here's an ed tech tool, let's use it. It's like, okay, well, let's use it in meaningful ways, because sometimes my job is also saying technology isn't great here. Like we should say no. Right now, the handwriting to paper sometimes puts that more into that, long-term memory. So let's start working there.
That's so smart. That's really awesome.
Yeah, and it's so important. And then what I also like about your work is it spans so many different things. So then on Thursday, you have 2 sessions, one at 11 o'clock, Classy Doodles. Before we dive into the coaching era and AI, please tell me about Classy Doodles. What's happening in that session?
So I get to kick it with Manuel Herrera, and the fact that I've even
hey!
Wow, get some applause.
Yes. So I just get to kick it with Manuel Herrera, and we get to hang out. He's also my friend that we get to go to speakeasies with too as well. But that's in the after we're done with our presentation. But he's just a super fun guy, and I was just so grateful that I was able to work with him. And I do more of like the organization OneNote side of Microsoft. So a lot of times he was like, just go doodle, and he's the more creative brain, and I'm the more like, okay, let's organizational wise, let's talk about what that looks like with students, because I was utilizing it with students. So that's going to be that amazing session, and I'm so excited.
And then later in the day at 3:30 on Thursday, January 16th, you'll be coaching in the AI era. So you have 3 sessions that are very, very different in bringing that wealth of knowledge. That'll be in North 210C. So talk about that in this coaching era with these new tools and how it looks in the classrooms.
Yeah, so that was also a new form of coaching that I started to see myself do. Is sometimes teachers would come and they're like, I want to use AI. It's the fun thing. It's really smart, for them to be thinking that forward thinking. But then it's also, okay, well, what does that look like? So that example that I just gave you, that's something that I'm going to talk about in my session. Whenever I'm sitting down with a teacher, how can we use AI in meaningful ways? And how can we teach kids about how the model works? We have to make sure that we're building into that critical reading component. We're making sure we're not just passively reading, but we're actually, interrogating the text and making sure that is it giving me that information correctly. So some of those topics of conversations are going to be where it's at too. And whenever teachers sit down with me to discuss their lesson plans, it's also, well, can that be replaced with an AI model? And if it is, how can we get our students to be more creative rather than just regurgitate information? So that's some of the highlights that I'll be talking about.
I think, one of the things that I have found when I share augmented and virtual reality with teachers is everybody's like, what's that one tool? What do I need to use? Just tell me that one thing. And it's like, whoa. Where do your students struggle? Like, let's make sure whatever we're addressing isn't something that they're doing already well. If they're flourishing in something, why am I going to replace it with some new tech that's the new flashy thing? We need to identify where students have gaps because of me, because of, things that they're struggling with, whatever that might be. But it's like, how do you help them bring in those technologies? And I'm guessing you probably get that question all the time too. What's the one thing? But, how do you redirect them to make sure they're going in the right direction?
I think that just comes to always go back to that question of like, okay, what's the standard? Like, where are we at in the curriculum? We have, 2 adopted curriculums between math and reading. So I'm always like, well, let's start with our standard first and let's take a look at where we're at. And then we're going to use it as a complement. I was just reading the Merrill's book, which I think they're coming up in like 2
They are on the schedule today.
And one of the things that I really kind of resonated with their book when I was reading in the plane on the way here yesterday was just talking about, instead of having the AI replace, like, how is it enhanced? How is it, being used as a complement rather than just a replacement for what you're doing? And I think those are really important questions that we need to make sure that we're asking our teachers.
Absolutely.
So as I look around, I had a chance to head down to the expo hall, and there's just so much learning here. And your 3 sessions are very vast. Where do you go to get new learning? You just talked about a book that you read, but where do you go to take in some learning, or what are you hoping to leave here with?
So that's such a great question. I would say definitely I wanted to get a 2.0, if even a 3.0 when it comes to AI. I feel like a lot of sessions that I've been to, even the last ISTE, it was a lot of, here's what an artificial intelligence is, here's kind of how to use it with students. Like, I'm ready to dive. How meaningfully can we dive in with AI to complement our lessons rather than replacing our lessons or replacing anything or just using it for funsies? So I would say that that's going to be my main goal, is I want to leave with that information and connecting. So yeah. I love to connect with different educators because I rely on them for many other different facets. So, I follow the Merrills, they're good friends of mine. So I'm going to read their book, and then that's going to push me to be a better educator too as well.
And I think that ties into my question a little bit, but the concept of Stronger Together, what you're doing on a professional level, what you're doing here at FETC, like how that all intertwines to the work that you're doing. But can you share a little bit about how Stronger Together makes you who you are today?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I would not be on this podcast had I not have found an amazing professional learning network and been able to connect with people online. So I will never forget my first in-person experience. It was a Microsoft Innovator Educator Exchange. And I remember showing up being like, I feel like I just went on this dating app and then now I'm showing up to see. And I left that session with like, oh my gosh, like as soon as I came into school the next week, I was like, oh, I went to this session and here's how I can help this teacher, or I'm going to be hitting you up because I just had a teacher asking me about how they can use, those VR headsets. And I was like, well, Google Earth isn't supported anymore. So I said, I'm about to come to this session at FETC and I'll come back with an answer. And we are going to be connecting soon because I'll come back with an answer. So all of this is kind of, I'm huge into networking. If you've ever taken a Clifton Strengths Assessment, I am like a networker, an includer, and a wooer. So if you know situation. So that's just a little bit about me. So it's all intertwined and it's awesome. I'm excited to be here.
No, and as I said off the top, you can see why she's one of my favorite guests to have on. You're such a wealth of knowledge. But I do want to ask one last thing, because that's so important, what you just talked about of connections. But your first time here, but you are well versed in the conference world. And if somebody's new and this is their first time here, how can they do that? Like, what would be your recommendation to start building that professional learning network, making connections so give a recommendation to first timers, like true first time to conference this size?
So great question. I would just say a way that we're all able to still be connecting is through social. So if you don't have a Twitter X account, get one started. A lot of us are moving to Blue Sky or adding in Blue Sky to ours as well, LinkedIn. So whenever you have those times, then for some it's going to be uncomfortable. So you have to get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable at first and saying, hey, this is going to be kind of weird or kind of awkward. But what's so amazing about anything in education is we are all inclusive. So I feel like I could go up to anybody that I've seen their work online and I'm like, hey, it's so great to see you. And they're like, you too. And then you have that connection and you would be amazed. So give it a shot, give it a try out. And if you need somebody to kind of help, I am more than happy to connect with you all and get you started.
Oh, that is awesome. If you want to learn from Stevie while you're here at FETC. Again, make sure on the 15th, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, in North 210 in alternate forms of assessment. And then again the following day, Thursday at 11 o'clock, Classy Doodles, which sounds like it's going to be a great session. And then at 3:30, coaching in the AI era. And of course, once the vendor hall opens up, make sure to head down to booth 1736. Check out Identity Automation, see my amazing co-hosts and all the work that they're doing down there. So Stevie, thank you for jumping on. It is always great to talk to you. I hope you have a great first time here at FETC.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing time. Time is a precious commodity. You can never get back. So thank you so much, both of you, for inviting me in.
Wonderful. And for those of you who are out there watching, we have many, we're over double digits now watching live. Make sure to stop in, say hi, swing over, give yourself a little pitch. It's okay. That's why we do it live here. Thank you to Jen Wemble, who's an amazing leader. And this event is just kicking off. We have 3 more days of amazing learning with and from so many people. So Jamie, Stevie, and all of you out there watching, make sure to stay connected.